Exam and the ear exam, mashallah. All right. Maybe we'll give it a minute. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alrighty. Should we get started? بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. All right, so maybe we can get started, inshallah. As Brother Abdul Wahab was saying, everyone has one of those machines, and I'm guilty. I have two tonight, and I have more at home. It's it's a heavy topic to process because it's multifaceted, and there's a lot that we can talk about today. But one question that comes to mind is, are we overdoing this? Are we exaggerating? When we're saying that we're afraid, worried about phones, are we overdoing this? What do you guys think? Are we overreacting, or is this a real challenge, or how do folks feel about this? Yeah. Are we? Yeah, like the dangers of phones. Are we just too anxious because we're immigrants and Muslim, and we're worried that one day, yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think. Can we have a microphone that goes around? Yeah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. رجاء parents, please, no kids in the hallway, and please break the kids group so we can listen everybody to the lecture, please. So I have kids in the hallway running around, they're making noise, kids sitting here in the middle, they're making their own stuff. So please, parents, get your kids next to you. Where's Umar Khushafa? Umar Khushafa?
All right. One brother was saying that he worked in telecommunication for a long time, and that there was research about the dangers and the worries about phones, and it was shut down. That's what the brother was saying. Yeah. No, no one is surprised. Are you surprised? Right? Yeah.
There was a lot of pressure from the telecom companies
Yes.
that they shut off that research actually,
Yeah.
and they started from going out in the world. So
Yes. Who here believes that Instagram is serious about the age restriction and they're worried about the youth? Raise your hand. Facebook, TikTok, you think they're worried about the youth? You think they're seriously worried about the youth and the age restriction? It's a business. They're running a business, right? So a lot of people are angry. We need better control on Instagram, better control on Facebook, better control on TikTok. You know, these guys are not, they're in business. They're in for the money, right? So they're not going to worry about the youth, especially not about the Muslim youth, right? If we have a specific moral compass, if we have a specific moral obligation, if we have a culture that we want to protect, a religion that we want to abide by, it's not on their minds. It's just not. So this becomes our responsibility and, inshallah, our own agenda that we really have to follow to protect the youth and to think about phones and social media and whatever else is being watched on these phones. It's a real challenge. It's a real problem. You know, I think one way of thinking about this is not to think about it as a separate conversation than the conversation we have about parenting, right? In the book of parenting, in the big book of parenting that nobody gave us, right? You wish. Everybody wishes that they have a child come with a manual. Like Mabruk, Muhammad, this is Muhammad's manual. You know, just page 20 talks about how to deal with phone problems. You know, just follow the protocol, follow the guidelines. Inshallah, Muhammad's going to be okay. Anyone got this book at all? Can you give me a copy if you get that book? There is no manual like that. So kids come to the world with their own biological agenda. Babies come with their own agenda. There are babies that are cranky. Why are they cranky? I don't know why they're cranky. They're just built that way. They're built cranky that way. There are kids that are easy to soothe. You sing them a song and they go to sleep. Who loves those babies? Everyone loves those babies, right? Everyone wants to have an easy to soothe baby, right? Other babies are just stubborn. Some babies are long-winded. Some children, they're persistent. You give them a building thing to build and they just keep going at it. They keep going and then they build it. And then they fail, they try, they keep trying until they build it. Some kids wait for 5 minutes and they jump to the other toy. They're done. Why? But they're wired that way. They're wired that way. This is how their brains are wired. So if you think about how different every child is, you can imagine how varied your parenting styles are going to be. So every child needs their own way of approach. I was given a lecture at different masjid, and one guy was upset with me. One of the brothers was upset with me. You know, I went on a long conversation about, upbringing and psychology and kids, and he was pretty adamant that there's one way of parenting, and that's his way of parenting. And that you have to teach them what's right. And he told me when my son grew up, he came back to me and said, "Daddy, you're right. That's way to discipline. Just be strict, be straight to the point, and make your point clear." And I said, this is true. What you're saying is true, because alhamdulillah, that kid that you had was not the kind of oppositional kid. You had a kid who listened to you. Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing. But if you get the argumentative kind of kid, what do? So I'm saying this because I think that the question about phones and how phones are used and social media use is a chapter in the book of parenting. Why am I saying that? For two reasons. And there is a positive and negative, for that fact. The positive is, if you've been able to have a working relationship with your child, if you've been able to manage conflict, okay, there is no perfection. We don't talk about good parents in psychology. We talk about good enough parents. Really, that's a term, good enough parent. If you're able to do that, then you will apply the same concepts that you've applied to talk about phones and social media. On the flip side, if you're struggling with other stuff in parenting your child, the phones are going to be no exception. You're going to struggle with that. It's bigger of a challenge, I know, but it's a kind of a challenge. Now, what follows after this is whatever I'm going to say today, whatever advice I'm going to talk about, I don't want you to feel depressed if you feel that you cannot apply that at home. I don't want you to feel down to say, oh, there's no way my kid's going to listen to me if I say that. Well, that's okay, right? Maybe your kid is a different kind of kid, and that's perfectly fine and perfectly normal. What I'm going to say is something that you can learn and think about what works best for your kid. I'm not going to give you the manual. I don't have the manual. I didn't forget it at home. It doesn't exist, right? Whatever I'm going to tell you today is food for thought. I want you to think about it, reflect on it, and think if you can use it, make use of it in your family. This is not a recipe, but some food for thought, inshallah, so we can all learn and grow and try to protect our kids, really. That's important. Right. So the reason why there is this big dilemma about phones in the field of mental health, at least in this country, in the West, is because ever since smartphones have become accessible, and ever since social media became a thing, we've realized that the mental health of children and teenagers has been getting worse and coming down and dwindling over the past 15 years or so. We don't know why, but teenagers in this culture, in Western cultures, are not doing great. So like the rates of suicide, for example, have gotten worse in a lot of communities, a lot of families, for many young people. Rates of depression have actually also gotten a lot worse. So in a span of 7 years, I think between 2010 and 2017, some studies show depression in younger people jumped from 10% to close to 15%. That's a big jump, right? And all these things are getting our attention because they're happening simultaneously as phones and social media have become more dominant, more available, and more accessible. And then the question is, how do you test for that? Are there studies that help us look at social media use and what kind of social media use and how many hours on the phone you spend, how that affects your mental health? Yes, there is. We do have studies, we have research that tells us, actually in numbers, how that affects your mental health and your well-being. And I'm going to focus mostly on teenagers today and children, because that's a concern that we have. If you're an adult and you have a phone addiction or some kind of addiction, where you can't leave your phone, you can't put it down, it's a problem. But as an adult, you can figure out yourself, you can ask for help. But many times, teenagers and children, they don't have the mental capacity, the cognitive capacity, the moral maturity to say, oh, I have a problem, right? And ask for help. They probably might not do that. So there is one interesting study that looked at the number of social media accounts that teenagers use. Right. What does that mean? They went to all these teenagers, I think it was a huge amount, like 500,000 maybe. And they surveyed them and they asked them, how many accounts do you have of social media? And they also screened them for their mental health. And they asked them about whether they're feeling depressed or they're feeling lonely or they're feeling down. And they looked at all the ones that are available. So like Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Facebook is no longer in the agenda of the youth. I'm sure you know that. If you have a Facebook, your ammo, sorry to break that for you, brother, sister, sorry. but that's how it is right now. So the heavy hitters are YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. These are like the most common ones that youth are using these days. So what the research showed is if you have accounts on 3, 4, or more social media platforms, you are more likely to be more depressed and in poor mental health. If you are on 2 to 3, then you're probably okay. If you are no social media accounts, like 0, you're also struggling. So one would, think that this is odd. This is weird. It's bad for your health. The more you use, you're going to get worse. If you're not using any at all, like 0, right? Then you should be protected. Why would you also not feel good at 0? Well, the reason is, or at least we assume that that's the reason, if you're not there, you are absent from the social networks and circles that your friends are in. So if they're going to, I don't know, like a basketball game and they all played together and then they posted the picture on Instagram, everyone liked the pictures and something funny happened during the basketball game and they put that on Instagram, and that particular youth is not on Instagram, not on social media. The whole school is talking about it and they're not aware of what's happening. Why are these kids laughing? Right? In Arabic, we say "aish bil khassi," right? Like living in the lettuce. A weird metaphor in Arabic. Like isolated from the surrounding. And that isolation apparently is not good for the mental health of children. Now, this data is messy. Why is it messy? Because you're trying to learn something today and you want to go home and apply it. Maybe you had hoped that I would say it's evil. Tabban, it's evil. Scrap it out, delete all the social media networks. It's all bad. But you can't say that now, right? Because the data says that a little bit can be healthy, just a little bit. So you being connected and being aware and and alert about what's happening around could be protective for you, could be healthy. And some studies looked at why would that be healthy? Why is this healthy? For a number of reasons. It could be healthy because you're not absent, like I said, you know what's happening. But also because sometimes it builds friendship through communication. So if you have friends and you're on social media and you're connecting, you're talking about things, you talk about your feelings, you voice your frustrations, you're mad at your parents and you say you're mad at your parents for some reason, right? Sometimes you get good advice. And sometimes you feel validated. They might say the same thing. Oh, it happens to me as well. They never let me go for sleepover. I don't know why these parents are like that. Well, it's same for me. Oh, so I'm not alone. Right. Okay. So that's, I guess, okay, maybe, because we're all in this together. So somehow it's protective. But, if you're on too many social media platforms, that could be a problem. And people who are on more than 3 or 4 social media platforms have reported actually more loneliness, a deeper sense of loneliness. Another something to think about. How come? Why are they more lonely and more down if they have all these windows open to the world? Why? Well, it's very interesting that we're actually worried about youth who use more social media platforms, like a lot of them. While, and this is if you only take this from this lecture, is this, right? The vulnerable youth, people who might be in trouble, who we have to keep an eye open and ears open and try to help and make sure that we're there for them to support them, are the folks who have high social media access and low socialization. So they're like 7, 8, 9 accounts Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, but they have a friend, maybe one or two at school, that they don't see as much. So they're not socialized enough. They're not pro-social. They're not invited to places to go. They struggle to initiate friendships and conversations and discussions. That is a vulnerability. So if you see a lot of social media use but less socialization, that is a risk factor. Am I making sense? What do you guys think? Is this logical, you think, or do you have any questions or any thoughts about? Yeah.
Just assuming like some kid has one account, but he's staying on this account for 3, 4, 5 hours all the day just watching the Instagram. Is it how like how
Are you gonna wink? You're gonna wink? You have a kid here?
Yeah.
Don't wink. All right.
So I mean, like if you just like addicted to the phone, just wanna just
Yes.
all the day do this.
Yeah, we'll
Even
talk
for
about
one account.
we'll talk about practical tips later, like smashing the phone. No, I'm kidding, bro. I'm kidding. You go away for a second. Yeah. So this is really one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is the hours people spend, right? The hours, right? So the average teenager, this is the average in our culture, Western, part of the hemisphere. They spend about 9 hours a day, on their phones. And this is not talking homework and, emails and things like that. 9 hours, that's a big number. Yeah, about 90% of youth have smartphones, and about 80% have social media accounts. Just the statistics, right? So the hours they use, like you said, sometimes for a long time, that apparently is also something that people have studied. They looked at how many hours you spend on social media. And the magic number is 2, right? So I'm talking about social media, not phones, okay? 9 hours was for the phone in general, right? But the magic number for risk with social media is 2 hours. If you're spending more than 2 hours on social media per day, this is an area of question mark, and possible vulnerability for the youth, for the younger people. And again, when is that important, you think? When does this become more of a problem? If what? Allah. We got psychologists in there with mashallah. Yes. So if they're using it a lot, but they're not socialized, so there's no social outlet to the world, it becomes a bigger issue and vulnerability. Right. So I think now we have an idea about what is dangerous social media youth, what is risky. It's risky when it's very frequent. It's risky when there are multiple accounts. It's more risky if there's low socialization with this youth, and it can be risky. It might be an area of vulnerability if they're not non-existent on social media, because they might actually be absent from the whole scene, and they might not actually be around to understand what is happening around them. Right. So, the question is, okay, fine. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed, Dr. Othman. This is nice. Thank you for letting us know the hours, the social accounts. And the question is, so what do we do now? Do we control it? Do we not control it? How do we control it? How do we have a conversation about this? Right. Now, this conversation will probably apply to you more if you have younger kids. If you have a 17-year-old teenager who's like 6 hours, 7 hours on their social media, on their phone, this might be a more difficult conversation because they're older now, right? They might be 18 soon. But if you are raising younger children, you have 3, 4, 5-year-olds, this is important for you because this will help you think about raising those kids in the future. Because phones are not going to go away. Social media is not going to go away. It's going to be here, right? So I want you to think about these tips, as you think about parenting in general, because this conversation is one that you will have frequently. It can be quite frustrating for a lot of parents to feel that, why do I have to say this over and over and over again? We keep having this conversation over and over and over. I want us to have a conversation and get it done with, and then just get it done with. You can do that. You can suppress your child, right? And you can say, this is the end of it. If you ask me about this question more, I'm going to take away your phone, right? It's what I said. I don't want to keep talking about this. The rules are the rules, right? If you keep, going circles about this, I'm going to actually take away your phone. You can do that. You can do that. And I'm not trying to tell you how to parent at all. But I'm also here to shed some light on what might happen if you do that. Okay. As you are raising your children, you are instilling moral values, right? What's right, what's wrong, what's halal, what's haram, what's mustahab, how to respect elders, how to walk properly, how not to throw trash. So you're raising moral beings. At the same time, you're also investing their skills. And advocacy and negotiation is a skill that kids have. And the fact that they're coming back to you to revisit something and talk about it again is actually a healthy thing. It's a pain. It hurts because you need to go get your groceries and you don't have time for this, right? But this is a healthy sign that they're actually coming back to you to question something that is important for them, and they're advocating for themselves. So this advocacy is not always being stubborn or trying to be fresh or trying to make my life more difficult. It's an actual skill. So we have to pay a close attention to this. We keep our ears and eyes open, and we invest in this advocacy. And we send a strong message that I am so proud of you. You're advocating for yourself. I respect that. And I'm busy right now, as you can see, but like Friday night, I'm going to sit with you again. Let's talk about this. Let's grab a cup of tea and talk about it, because it's very important. It's important for you. It's important for me. But let's keep talking about this. This is a nice way to encapsulate the situation, not ignore the requests, and address it properly, because you need time and you need bandwidth to address it properly. And this is why I'm saying this is an ongoing conversation about phone privileges, social media privileges, and when are you ready? When are you not ready? What is the right age? All these things are important to negotiate and renegotiate all the time. Not to change your parenting belief system, but to make sure that you maintain the relationship. That you keep the child in what we call in psychology the circle of communication. The child has to be within the circle of communication. What does that mean? That no difference in opinion should estrange the child from you. No difference in opinion about parenting should make the child feel unwelcome to come to you and ask you questions and feel your warmth. Even if they're giving you a hard time, they want to be around you. They want to ask you questions. So we never alienate the child and kick them out of this circle of communication. We disagree, we quickly circumscribe and come back and welcome back to the circle of communication. In some families, kids are, bandaged or sent away or shunned until they apologize. Like, don't talk to them until you apologize. That can last for weeks and days and months sometimes, where there is this big break in family communication because the kid did not apologize. Our job as parents is to bring them back. Say, yeah, you messed up. All right, let's think about how you can not mess up next time. All right? But creating those wars at home, those battles at wars at home are not going to help your kid. So it's an ongoing conversation, and that you will revisit once and twice and thrice and throughout their teenage years. Now, psychologists say that before the age of 13, and strange enough, Instagram says that as well, but nobody listens, because all the kids are Instagram. 13 to 14 is the age where kids are responsible enough to have a social media account. So before the age of 13 and 14, it's really questionable if they should be allowed to have a social media account. And some might argue, do they even need a smartphone before that age? Yes, they have to have a phone. They want to text you, make sure that you're where you are and where they are, and communicate effectively at school. Something bothers them. Yeah, they can do that. That's okay. Especially for the anxious kids, it goes a long way. It helps. But do they actually need a smartphone? If they have a Chromebook at home and they have it, at school, why do they have to have a smartphone? Is the question. So this is where the art of parenting kind of kicks in. One formula to think about this negotiation about social media platforms is to actually attempt to socialize your child. Right. So kids want to have friends, they want to be social, but not all the time they're able to do that. Why is that? Because social skills sometimes are biological, right? Sometimes kids are born pro-social. It comes to them very quickly. It's easy. They're easy to make friends. The social butterflies. I have a friend like that. He's in California now, without mentioning names. But he was friends with all of Boston virtually when he was in Boston. And so we were talking about this. I asked him, look, how come you're so, how do you do that? I can't do that. How do you do this? It's amazing. He said, well, it runs in my family. So what? Is that even possible? He said, yeah. My uncle is a Mukhtar. Mukhtar is in our neighborhoods. What's a Mukhtar in English? It's like in every town, there's this person who signs marriage contracts and deals for real estate, right? It's like a local officer, and that person knows everyone. So his uncle was a Mukhtar, and his other uncle was a Mukhtar as well. It runs in their family. They're pro-social. That's their species. It's amazing. But that doesn't happen to all kids. Some kids, the parents have to attempt to socialize them. What does that mean? It means that I'm going to have to find venues for my kid to socialize. I should ask around, are there groups for kids? Are there games for kids? Is there youth halaqah at the masjid? So you attempt to socialize your child to make sure that any gap that could happen because of not having a social media account is accounted for. Am I making sense? Right. It doesn't mean that they're going to like it. They're not going to like it, right? But one formula is to invest in the relationship and to stay in the circle of communication and say, I know that at this point we think that you cannot have a social media account, but let's talk about it in 6 months to see if you're ready. Let's talk about it next year to see if you're ready. Make it an ongoing conversation, not a brick wall. Does that make sense a little bit? What do people think? Yeah, say it again.
My question was, what if the child just sees it as a way of delaying the process of them getting a social media account and they get even more frustrated?
Yes. Yeah, so one of the roles that parents play is to help kids deal with frustrations, right? So being frustrated actually is a good thing for children. You see that at an early age. You see a little toddler, little baby trying to they're teething and they're trying to bite on something. And they get upset with it. They just get put in your mouth. They just throw it away. Why? Because they're frustrated. Then they try again and they get less frustrated with time. But dealing with frustration is a great skill that kids have to learn. You're not going to say that to the kid. You're not going to say it, right? But you understand that they're getting frustrated. This is good deep inside. Like your angelic fatherly, motherly voice will say, that's great, alhamdulillah, right? They're voicing their opinion. It's amazing. They might kick their feet, they might do something like that, but that's part of the process, right? It is not su adab. It might be, but but it's part of the growth process. You can twist it like that and say, oh, su adab, go to your room. You can do that if you want to, but you're shutting down the kid. And instead, we should say, okay, let's talk about it a little more and see when you're ready, right? So, yes, other thoughts? Do you have kids? You're 17? So you're the one who got frustrated.
So I had a question.
Yes.
So some kids, like some are shy, some are very, social.
Yes.
How do you think their personality changes the approach that parents should have for that kid?
Say a little more.
So like some kids are shy and some kids are like very social in school.
Yeah.
How do you think that like their personality, like how do the parents like change their approach based on their kid's personality?
It's a great question. Great question. Yeah. So you mean the parents' approach to the kids themselves? Right. I think that everyone has a talent, right? So not being a social butterfly is actually a talent. There is this movement in this culture to just diagnose everything, right? I'm a psychiatrist. I diagnose, but we do it a lot. We like to diagnose things and feed people pills and meds and things like that, and it's not always good, right? Because sometimes we have to think about the talents that people have. If you have, let's say you have ADHD, for example, right? Yeah, it's a diagnosis, but it's also a talent. Why? Because people with ADHD, if they like something, oh boy, they're going to go after it. They're going to zone in 110 until they crack the code and figure this out, right? So there is talent in everything. If someone is not very social, we want to know, what are they interested in? Maybe they're good readers. Maybe they value books and they want to be more in the library. And maybe they want to join a debate club, right? So debate clubs are interesting spaces. Why? Because they're social, right? But the way you're socializing them is not based necessarily entirely on social skills that you have, but based on your intellectual capacity, right? But it's socialization nonetheless. So you're entering the social realm, you're talking to people, you're debating with people, and then maybe you'll make friends. You don't have to be the life of the party to make friends. There are different venues to make friendships and to be social, other than being witty and like a stand-up comedian or anything like that. You can find your own way to actually make friendships. Does that make sense a little bit? Yeah. But again, if you're struggling with that socially, you might be more prone to spend more time online, like on social platforms, and try to like chat with people. And by the way, most people on social platforms, they're not chatting together. I think there was a study that was done on Facebook, and they found that less than 4% of people on the platform are actually texting each other, like on the platform. People mostly just, that movement, they just go just down their feed and see what's happening. Yeah. How are we doing so far? Doing good? You guys doing okay? Yes, absolutely.
So if my son, I know he's not social, and giving his phone will make him more not social. If I take the phone from him, is this considered a good solution, or it will escalate the issue?
Yeah, taking away the phone is like حكم بالإعدام. Like this is like talaq, like forever, or like for how? Yes. Okay, so yes and no, right? It has to be clear for the kid what you're doing. and they have to be aware of this contract that you have with them. You have to beforehand explain to them why you're taking the phone away from them, but make it part of a plan. Like, for example, right? Like you come back tired from work and they're loud because they're laughing at something and they're watching something and they're like for 5 hours. And you say, that's it, hell عني. Give me your phone. You're not gonna see it for a whole week. Yeah, that's not typically how things work in a good way. Things go work in a good way when they're planned. When you say, okay, this is the plan for your phone. This is your plan for your homework. You do your homework, you get your phone for an hour or two, you give the phone back. You don't give the phone back, I'm gonna start counting time, right? If you use it like a half hour more, that subtracts from the next day, right? It's just as an example, I'm not saying you should do that, right? But that kind of conversation works a little better because that is better for the kids to learn. Kids don't learn as much if you do things haphazardly. If you get angry, you take something, like being snappy. Doesn't teach kids a lesson. It just teaches them to be, what's the word? Cunning. If you're snappy as a parent, you're snappy, they know that you're snappy, they know when you're snappy, they try to hide stuff from you. But if you are calculated, if you say, these are the rules at home, right? Some families have a behavioral chart, right? You earn points, you earn stuff, right? And you don't do the stuff that you're supposed to, you don't earn the stuff, right? And the stuff that you can earn are maybe like an extra hour with the phone. You set up your own rules at home that work for you. You know, some families, they have the Xfinity app on their phones, right? And then you shut off the internet at 8 p.m. for all the devices at home. And that's the rule at home. We shut it off at 8. That's what we do in this house. But Dad, why now? Why did we change now? Like we never had, well, Dr. Mohammed at the Malden Masjid, March was 4th today. I'm a little disoriented. March 4th changed my life forever. Alhamdulillah, I saw the light, and starting tonight, I'm going to shut off the Wi-Fi at 7 p.m. And then they can go after me if they're unhappy with this. And you can blame me for that if you want to. I hope they're not big and bulky. Other thoughts from the youth? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about the pressure from school. They put it on my kid, and my kid's gonna put it on me about like the phones, the social media, how we can deal with that.
Well, what kind of pressure?
So, for example, if my son have an old phone and all his friends have an iPhone, wherever, 14, wherever, it's gonna be, he cannot use it in front of his kid, in front of his friend, right? You're gonna come back to me and said, okay, all my friends have this and this and this. So I can, that's one of the challenges. So, and my friend have this type of social media, this type of account. I need to have a one to be in the same area with them. So how we can deal with that pressure?
How old is the kid?
Like high school.
High school.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, high schoolers can work and earn stuff, right? Any high schoolers in the house? Yeah, you can earn stuff. You can work, right? Yeah, you're legally, you can work and make money if you wanted to. Yeah, so but you can earn stuff with money or with other things, right? So you can say, okay, we can have a conversation about you getting a new phone, but what do you want? How do you want to earn it? What do you think? How do you think you want to earn this phone? And then you can have a conversation about what your expectation is as a parent from this child to earn the phone. For some families, get better grades. For some families, wake up for Fajr. For some families, be nice to your younger, siblings. Every family is a little different. But think about ways that they can earn that phone. That's one thing. Now the other thing is, which is also important, and we talk about psychology and behavioralism, but what about also our spirituality, right? Sometimes we have to invite into the conversation our spiritual tradition as Muslims, right? And we oftentimes forget that. We have to invite this to the conversation in a genuine and non-judgmental and supportive and compassionate way. But we have to invite it because we're Muslims, right? And that's our belief system, and we want to raise the youth in those footsteps, right? So one possible conversation that you can have that you can tie it with our spiritual tradition is to talk about abundance in our religion, the concept of abundance. And what does it mean to have abundance? And what does it mean to have a luxury? Right? The famous story from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, when he offered the milk for the Sahaba and they drank from it, what did he tell them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Wallahi, la tus'alun an hadha an-na'im. Na'im. What does na'im mean in English? Abundance, blessing. Abundant blessing, na'im, right? And that's just drinking milk, right? So in this culture, we have an ailment. We have an ailment of luxury. And we think that luxury is the norm, and it's not. We drive luxurious cars. We eat luxurious food. We use luxurious phones. And you drive just 6-7 hours in an airplane and go to other countries. And you understand how artificial our luxury is and how fragile this is. So fragile. So we have to invite that conversation to our lives and to our families. And we have to live by the Islam that we preach. And maybe, in the youth groups or in the masjid, we can have more conversations about how luxury is hurting our spiritual lives. It is hurting us. I hope that was helpful, inshallah. Youth. Yes, the girl in the back with the glasses. You had a question. You need a microphone.
How can we stop our kids from getting addicted to phones, and what is the best way?
How can we stop other kids from being addicted to the phones? Yeah, like how old are these kids?
15, like teenagers.
Teenagers. What are they doing on their phones? What kind of stuff is happening on their phones?
Text their friends, and they like to play and watch TikTok.
And that's bothering you. Is that bothering you? It is bothersome.
Yeah, it does bother me.
Yeah. Why does it bother you?
Because my brother, he always spends time on devices, and
Yeah.
he usually never tries to spend time with family unless
Yeah.
my dad is there. And I want my brother to spend more time with me.
What's your brother's name? Abdurrahman, come to the podium immediately. This is how you stop addiction. Abdurrahman, where is he? Is he at home or is he here? He's texting? All righty. Is Abdurrahman in this youth group? Is he in the masjid here? Is he?
Yes.
All right. Hey, how about I'll have someone talk to him? Would that be good? Okay, inshallah. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. How do you get like Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
How do you get like teenagers to not get like addicted to their like friends calling them on the phone, and then like after prayer like calling them back?
And that's also bothering you?
Yes,
Why is it bothering you?
because I have a sister. But
Yeah.
sometimes my sister's not enough to like get me going,
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel left out because my brother keeps calling his friends.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Yeah. No, that's a real issue, right? These phones are breaking families and separating families from each other. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think we should do? You tell me. If you were the parent, what would you do? If you were like sitting, you want to sit in my seat, what would you say? What would you tell people?
But I would take the phone away, but sometimes it isn't good. But if you take the phone away for like a week, they might not get like connected to the phone too much because they know what they can do outside the phone, like play with their friends instead of being on social media all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, what's your name?
Abby,
Abby. Abby, you're so brave. Thank you so much for saying how you feel. It's amazing. Alhamdulillah, it's amazing. It is, I have to say, it is difficult to be younger and to have older siblings. It's difficult, right? Because they'll be teenagers and they'll grow up, they go to college eventually, and then they fly away. It is difficult. And then we miss them, right? We miss them, right? Yeah, maybe what we can do as a family is have more family time if we can. Would that be nice?
yeah.
Yeah, to have like a family time, like every Friday, maybe do something together, or on Saturday, so you can spend time with your brothers and sisters. Yeah, and that will be phoneless time, like no phone, right? Yeah, maybe we can have a conversation about that at home. The thing with teenagers, I'm sure that you'll discover that very quickly. They're stubborn, right? They think they know everything. The world is their backyard, right? And you can't teach them anything. It's difficult to be a teenager. It's very difficult. I'll tell you that. I was one before, and it was difficult for my parents and for me. Yeah, it's not easy. But inshallah, if we keep talking about this, I have an idea for you actually. You want to hear my idea about this, Abby?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to teach you something to say. You remember this? Try to remember it, right? It helps people change when you tell them how what they're doing makes you feel, right? So I'll give an example, right? So your sister is 16, she's on the phone, and you miss her, you want to play with her, you want to have a good time with her, but she's not paying attention to you. You can say, every time you're on the phone when I'm here, I feel ignored. Can you say that? Every time
Every time
you're on the phone,
you're on the phone,
busy,
busy,
texting and doing whatever,
texting,
while I'm sitting here next to you,
while I'm sitting here next to you,
I feel
I feel
ignored.
ignored.
And that makes me sad.
And that makes me sad.
If you would put your phone down
If you would put your phone down
and pay attention to me,
and pay attention to me,
I would feel attended to.
I would feel attended to.
And that would make me feel happy.
And that would make me feel happy.
Wait, you think you can do that?
Yeah.
Try it. Yeah, try that, right? Yeah, this is a formula that we teach people in therapy, right? This is called the assertiveness technique, where you tell people how their behaviors impact your emotional world, your feelings. Because people sometimes, it doesn't click for them. They don't get it. But when you put it that clearly, sometimes it clicks and it helps them understand how impactful their behaviors are and how hurtful the behaviors can be. People can hurt each other without knowing that. And we're not using this formula against them to hurt them back, but we're just putting a mirror and say, this is how you're hurting me when you're doing this, right? And you can use this with siblings, husbands and wives, they can use it together. Don't hate me that I taught some people this skill, but it's helpful, it's good. Yeah, maybe we should wrap up in 10 minutes, but yeah, go ahead. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. FIFA. Wow. They still have FIFA? All right. They have all the teams still? Okay. All right. I miss FIFA. Yeah, in the books of psychology, gaming is an addiction. Now we know it's an addiction. Like gambling is an addiction. Gaming could be addictive. You can have a gaming addiction, right? So if the kids are not showing up for meals, they're not sleeping at night, they're not doing their homework, they're fighting you at home, like physically. I know that some families, there are physical fights at home because the dad tried to take the console out of the room, like physical fights, right? If it's getting to that point, you need the expert opinion. You need the help of a therapist because this is now an addiction. This is a gaming addiction, right? So how do you, yeah, phone or otherwise, it's all the same. It's all addiction, right? So the question that the things that make us think, oh, this is like, how do you know this is addictive or like normative, right? Right. So there are a few things that you have to think about. You have to think about intensity. How bad is it of a habit? You think about the frequency, how much time, right? And you have to think about function. Is it affecting their function? If it is, then if the three of the above are all there, then you start to think, oh, maybe this is an addiction, right? The biggest problem with those things is sleep. Sleep. The American Academy of Child Psychiatry recommends that no teenager should go to bed with their phones in the room. No phones in the room. When you go to sleep, we have a phone box. We put all the phones in the box, and the first response you're gonna get, I need it for the alarm for Fajr. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayayat min iman. MashaAllah. I need it for the alarm for Fajr. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. You go to dollar store, get an alarm. From dollar store, get an alarm. That's it. Use that for Fajr and that for school. Right? Well, sometimes I can't sleep. And if I wake up at 1 a.m., I just check to see, what's going on in the world. Don't do that. That's not good for your sleep. And that's when the mental health starts declining and depression kicks in. Kids are not sleeping and then they're not doing well in school. So if you do anything at home with this, make sure that you regulate the sleep for these kids. Because these kids are not sleeping, right? And they play with the parents a game, right? Don't take away the TV out of my room because I use that for sleep. I can't sleep without watching Netflix. Says who? Says who, ya ammu? Since when, ya habibi? Since when? We take the TV out, take Netflix out, take the remote out, take the cable that goes in the back of the TV out, take it out of the rooms. When you watch TV in a common space or in certain hours, if you have it in your room, but we're taking away the cord so you're not waking up 2 a.m. in the morning and watching horror movies. We're not doing that, right? But all that starts early on. This conversation starts early on. But there will be a fight, obviously. If you want to do that at home, there'll be a fight, right? Not like physical, but there's going to be a comeback. And it takes some time to get used to it. Like not going to sleep with a phone it's terrible. Like if you were to tell me, Othman, I'm going to take your phones for like half an hour and put them in another room. Every second I'll be putting my hand here, and then I remember it's not here, right? It's going to hurt a little bit, but that's okay. Because that's the healing hurt, right? Healing sometimes is painful, but healing is important, necessary. So that's kind of growing pains. That's important. Sister in the back had a question. Yeah, a comment.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam rahmatullah.
I have a question about Snapchat.
Yes.
Now it's on my phone, but soon it's going to be on her phone.
Yes.
Maybe.
How old is she?
13. She will turn 14.
Okay.
She's going to be in high school next year.
Oh, mashallah.
I'm okay with her to have a phone because she would need to contact me or her dad, but it just what's the social media that's really can be friendly, teenager friendly. Because all her friends have Snapchat right now, and they have a list of their classmates in there, and they communicate with each other. But I don't know how safe it's going to be when it's going to be in her phone.
Yes, that's a legit concern that you have, and I'm glad you're thinking that way. Alhamdulillah, that's good. You know, one important conversation that parents have to have with their kids before they say, okay, there you go, social media and phones, is a conversation about them being on their social media accounts. Like, I'm okay with you having Snapchat, but I'm going to be on your Snapchat. I'm going to have a Snapchat. And if you want to have a Snapchat, I'm okay with that, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to see what's happening. Right? And I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to say, please don't do that on Snapchat. It's not good. It's not cool. Right? Just be there so you know what's happening. I think that's important. Right? Unless you really don't have an issue, unless you feel like, okay, you know, she's probably gonna be okay. I'm not worried about her, whatever reason. If she says no, I don't want to have you on my Snapchat. I'm good. I'll be good. I promise to show you all my snaps. But you know, it's a conversation, like I said. There is no manual, but a very important conversation to have with your kids is, are you gonna be there or not on the social media? And then if you are, you have to kind of rein back and hold back your horses. So you're not having a conversation every day. Oh, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Why'd you say this? Why'd you say that? The way you're acting is immature. Yeah, she's 13. Yeah, she's not going to look the same like she's at home with you, right? And her grandma should not see her Snapchat because she probably will say, what, Snapchat? Yeah, because teenagers are teenagers, right? Unless she's doing something dangerous or haram, then that's a totally different thing. But you have to let go sometimes of things that you think is normative for teenagers to do. Yeah. Yeah. It's a real issue. It is a real issue. Yes. It's a real issue. And then you can also have that conversation. You can say, you know, look at this, you know, it doesn't look right for like a Muslim girl to have those things and to look at those things. And I'm worried about this, you know? So also important to have this conversation. If you're not comfortable, you can voice that and say, I'm not comfortable with this. Yeah. Yeah. That's a real problem. May Allah make it easy for you. Star Wars, go. Where's the microphone in? Star Wars dude here. What's your name? Ali. Ali has a question. Where's the microphone for Ali, guys?
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam rahmatullah.
So my question is, do you, in your opinion, is it good or bad for your kids to like bring their phones to school?
Bring their phones to school? Do you bring your phone to school?
No.
Do you have a phone?
Yeah.
You have a smartphone or not so smart?
Not so smart.
Okay. How old are you?
10.
10, mashallah. Do you have social media like Instagram and Snapchat? If
I
you
have
do, I want you to
Snapchat.
you have Snapchat? Okay, you're honest about stuff, alhamdulillah. Yeah, I don't know. They let you use your phones at school?
No.
Yeah, it's probably not a good idea to bring your phone to school. Is how you
Like
can, you
have
can
it
have
on-
it. You can have it on you or on the
Yeah,
bag or.
like have it on you.
That's not good,
in your
man.
backpack.
Ah, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna be focusing on this the phone and the teacher, and your mind says the little devil comes on the left side, says, "Check your Snapchat." It's like, oh my god, Snapchat, what? It's haram. But pay attention. Math, no Snapchat, math. You're not gonna focus. I know. Just leave it. I don't know. Do you have a locker?
No, we have.
Can you
like,
give it to the teacher? Can you say, "Hey, take my phone for the day"? Can you keep it at home?
that's a
No.
smart idea.
Yeah, maybe do that. You're 10. Yeah, Hisham, did you have a question? Yeah.
Jazakallah khair.
Wayyakum.
Dr. Uthman, half comment, half question. What are your thoughts about the general environment where we live in? Like, it's very individualized. People don't necessarily have large families or like a village. And I guess how much of a bigger issue is it that we live in this very individualized society? And what that would have to, I guess, make the situation of just being glued to your phone or to Netflix even worse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
should parents be aware that, to put it politely, we don't live in a normal time or normal society where people, to survive, they had to be part of larger groups. So should we make more of an effort to make a social environment for them, like a normal one, like bringing them to the masjid on a daily basis to really learn social skills? I'm told that even the wiring of people's brains nowadays is different, especially if you grew up with like social media and technology. Like, your ability to process information, to socialize, is not like it was like generations before. So how much of an effort do we have to put to like relearn how to engage with people and be social? And I'm not talking about social media again. I'm talking about like face-to-face
Yeah.
interactions.
Yeah, like real social
Yeah.
interactions. Right. Yeah, you're right. I'm guilty because I might be part of the problem. I'm a psychiatrist and I work like with psychological themes. I work with individuals, right? So I am biased that way in thinking about problems that might be bigger problems than just the person. Maybe these are society problems that we have to think about. And I think the answer is we have to work on both fronts. And we do have to remind ourselves that, even based on those studies that we just shared, that the more you're on social media, the less social you are, you're vulnerable, you're going to get more depressed. You take that and you blow it up and include, a bigger sample, you're talking about a depressed generation, so to speak. So we do have to have venues for socialization. We do have to think about our community, and we want to socialize in our spaces, in our comfort, in the masjid, and other healthy environments that, would line with our moral values. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much, everyone. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khair.